Hi everyone, welcome to the TriEssence martial art channel, style deconstructed. Today we're going to take a look at the first of the 5 primary hands of Wuxing Tongbei. The 5 elemental Tongbei. The first hand, which is known as Shuai Zhang. Now this whole mini-series, style deconstructed, is a little random. There's no clear process of what topic I'm choosing. It basically comes as people asking questions. I'm going to then talk about a certain aspect of this style or that style. So unfortunately, there's no logic sort pattern from episode to episode. But nonetheless, I hope that the information that we're conveying will still be of interest. So, when we're talking about Wuxing Tongbei Shuai Zhang, right, is perhaps the most controversial. In the sense that it is not commonly agreed on the same motion. That's what makes it, worthy of making a video. So the big conflict, so the matter of issue here is that if you look at other lineages of Wuxing Tongbei, Shuai Zhang is often depicted as doing this. Okay.
前，肘内合，身体稍右转。
So for example, the famous 3-hit combo in Wuxing Tongbei, which is Shuai, Cai, Zuan.
步左摔，以退步左摔。加上步右拍，以退步右拍。
Right. If you look at especially like the Dalian Wuxing Tongbei, then you can see clearly that their Shuai Zhang is this, and then Pai Zhang, and then Zuan. Okay. However, in my lineage of Wuxing Tongbei, which extends from great grandmaster Zhang Ce, in Xianghe, and then passing down to Beijing, my grandmaster Dong Xiusheng, and to my master Tongbei Shuai, we don't believe this is Shuai Zhang, right? In our lineage, we have a clear differentiation between Shuai Zhang and this, which we call Dan Shou. Okay, so Dan Shou, which we do like this, other lineages probably do bigger, like that. In Chinese, dan means to flick or to dust off, right? It refers to the action of doing this. And from that, you can clearly see why this move is called dan shou, because that's pretty much what the hand's doing. It's almost like it's flicking something off. Whereas if you look at the character of Shuai Zhang, that carries an entire different meaning. And this is a very important concept or method or method of analysis that you should take note. That when you are in doubt of, for example, there are 2 different beliefs on the same move, similar to the previous drama last year about where the elbow should be, right? If you're not sure which side of the argument is most likely to be correct, you basically go back and look at the classic text. You look at the rules that were set by the founders and the forefathers of that particular style. So in this case, if we go back to the classical text of Wuxing Tongbei and you look at the name of this move, which is Shuai Zhang, from there we can clearly see which is most likely to be correct. Now Shuai is also a little hard to explain. In Chinese, Shuai generally refers to as throw or to fall, right? We talked about this actually in a video a while back regarding whether Chinese martial art is about wrestling or about striking predominantly. And then we talk about how Shuai although means to throw, but not quite in the Chinese language, because throw in English can also mean throwing something. And that in Chinese is actually another word we usually call reng or diu. So it's a very complicated thing that we're not going to go into detail again, but if you're curious, there is a video on that already. However, in this particular case, as in Shuai in the martial technique, right, generally when I throw somebody, if I take him and I throw him, right, that's also called Shuai. That in English would be more precisely should be translated to as smash or to, basically in Chinese, Shuai refers to taking something, elevated, and then throwing it with force to the ground. That's what Shuai actually is supposed to describe in the Chinese language system. And if we take that as the meaning of Shuai, you can clearly see how this hand, it doesn't describe Shuai's essence at all. Right? If Shuai means to throw, then yes, this can kind of be explained as I'm throwing my hand forward. But if we describe Shuai as in smashing something with force to the ground, like if I pick up a person and I dump him to the ground, then this can't be Shuai. Alright? Furthermore, if you look at the actual classic, which reads some, okay, I read this a long time ago, so I might not be correct word for word, but if memory serves, the classical text reads something like this, right? 衰长冷脆似炸弹. So what that means is 衰长 is cold, but cold in this case refers to sudden and without warning. Almost like a surprise, right? So it had to be cold, and 脆 means crisp or sharp. That means it's not, you don't drag or lag. It's a very sudden and very sharp kind of thing. 冷脆似炸弹 means it's almost like a bomb. Okay, so from here you can see that obviously this you can be sudden, you can be crisp, but how can it be a bomb? It just doesn't communicate as the description in the classical text referring to a bomb. Now obviously you have to remember this was written in the Qing dynasty, mid to late Qing dynasty. And in Qing dynasty we don't have modern bombs, so when you're talking about these things you have to not think in modern context, right? We don't have C4s back then, or where people used to bomb people today. But back then they had the old stuff, right? Like black powder, the dynamite, they have those, right? Probably.
Yes, they do.
And also in the Qing dynasty, people starting to, basically understand bomb as that kind of action. And that clearly just can't translate to a bomb. Now let's look at my lineage of Wuxing Tongbei, what we describe as Shuai Zhang, right? Which is quite similar in the sense that it's also a hand, but our Shuai Zhang looks something like this. Right, so that is Shuai Zhang. And firstly, from the word itself, Shuai, smashing something to the ground, you can see this fit. I'm literally smashing something in a downwards force rather than a forward force. So it fits that word precisely. Especially when we take into consideration of how we call this 单手, the flicking or the dusting hand, it again fits the description completely. So I'm not saying that my lineage is absolutely correct, but anyone with half a brain should be able to see which one is more likely to be closer to the original description, right? Assuming the founder decided to name this decided to give two different names, 单手 and 衰长, and if you were to choose between this and that, you can clearly see which one is more likely to be named 单手, which one is more likely to be named 衰长. Now let's look at the bomb part, right? I mean, what does that mean? It had to be 冷脆, right? Sudden, crisp, and act like a bomb. Well, let's look at the basic fundamental purpose of Shuai Zhang. Like, there are many different applications to Shuai Zhang, or ways to use it, because it's a force and not an application, so you can use it in all kinds of situations. But let's look at its basic principle, which is the downwards force. Okay. Why is it 冷脆? That means when he has his arm here, right? Obviously, I always say we hit this part because it's less painful. Usually when somebody punches you, you be hitting here, but this is more painful. That's why we demonstrate with it. Right? This is not an application. We are using it just to purely show power. So 冷脆 basically means that this, when it drops down, it has to be very sudden. And 似炸弹, right? That actually refers to what you do to the person. So now you can see that he is, regular upright. When Shuai Zhang is applied to the person, it will be something like this. Okay. So that force that drop his arm down, that's what we refer to as like a bomb, because basically whatever he does, when the hand comes through, it basically shocks him and drags it down so that I can follow up with other attacks. Yeah, so obviously this is not cardinal, right? I mean, I'm just guessing here because this obviously back in the day people don't talk about physics in Wuxing Tongbei. But I was saying that the reason they describe it as a bomb is most likely because of the fact that when the arm is applied, do you want to switch arm or is this?
No, it's fine.
Is that the arm drags down, but my arm doesn't go with it. So instead of doing this, what happens then if I lift it up, his arm is back up again. Which means if he's doing the thing, I'm doing this, and we both go down, we both come up, nothing happens, right? So the whole description of 冷脆, right, a sudden, crisp, and then like a bomb, basically refers to the quality that when I hit his arm, my arm is already here. So his arm goes down, mine goes up. So there's a separation there. And to do that, you need to be sudden, you need to be crisp, and then arguably a bit like a bomb where it goes like this. It's not to get it down, it's he's down and I'm up. When you say that, kind of make a little sense?
Yeah, sort of, yes.
Yeah, so we have to keep in mind that people back in the day, especially Chinese martial art masters, they're not that educated and they certainly don't know physics or actual understanding of how stuff work like bombs. So that description is kind of vague. So that's why I'm not saying that this is definitely why it's referred to as being like a bomb, but if you were to compare this to that, you can kind of indicate gives which one is more fitting to the classic description and which one is less. So this one, no matter how you do it, it's not going to be like a bomb, right? Even if you were to hit something, due to the nature of this kind of hit, at the most it will feel like a whoop. It's not going to feel like a boom, right? That's just not there. Whereas this, at least in terms of the severity of the force, is kind of heavy. Whereas this is really light, no matter how you want to slice and dice it. Anything you want to add?
No, that's right.
Alright, so that's basically why in my lineage, this is called 单手, right? Flicking or dusting, and this is called Shuai Zhang. And it's fundamentally different, although it kind of looks similar, which you can kind of understand why maybe somewhere down the line it got changed, right? Because imagine if I were to do Shuai, Pai, and Zuan, the three combo, it will, instead of looking Shuai, Pai, Zuan, it will be like this, Shuai, Pai, and Zuan. So you can see that it almost looks similar to someone who doesn't know the stuff, because this hand is still kind of doing this, and the hand is doing that and doing this. But the difference is the one is a forward motion, whereas in my lineage is a downwards motion. Whether I come from this side downwards, or if I go from this side, it will still be here and there, and then there. So otherwise, if you do it really fast, it might look similar. Okay, like here. But fundamentally, they're not the same force, because if we were to do it the other lineage way, it at best is just a fast hitting combo. So I'll come to the guy, I'll try to flick him, and I'll try to hit him, and then when he's not careful, I'm going to try to punch him. Which kind of can work, but I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. It's not like one of those fake techniques that completely doesn't work. However, it carries a completely different interpretation to how we understand it, which is basically when I'm doing Shuai Zhang, I'm not trying to bait his face. Instead, whether I'm making the initiative or if he's making the initiative, it doesn't matter. What I'm doing with Shuai Zhang is breaking his structure and his entire arm by doing this. And then followed by the hand, and then the hand here, then do 转拳. And if I'm starting not from the outside but from the inside, it's the same thing. It will be from here, I'm trying to break his whole structure like that. And then comes here, and then 转拳, or something else. So the essence is different. And in fact, this is one of the things that Master Chong did to me when I first met him, right? So at first I made a move and he beat me in one move, and then he said, maybe he just got lucky, and he asked me, and then he said, he will not do a move, and I'll try to defend and counter. Basically, the move he did, he walked up to me and he stopped doing this, which I kind of knew the whole combo at the time, but the moment I started to using this hand, at the time I was trying to stop his hit. The moment that happened, then he had a very heavy downward force, and then that's when he put his hand on my face, and then this on my ribs. And that's the second time I knew I lost to him. That's happened the first time I met him. So you can see that in this scenario, the downward force is what actually is important. Because I was ready, he came with this, which you can see kind of looks similar to 单手, right? Therefore you can see the confusion. But I kind of expected to be the other system of Wuxing Tongbei where you do this, which I thought, if you come with that, if he does this, I'm just gonna have like an E-chain structure, and then he will bounce off, and I'm gonna then follow through and then hit him. But instead, the moment he did this, and I kind of take the structure, his force went down so heavy that my whole body got yanked forward, and then that's when his second hit and third hit came through. So these are just examples, hopefully you can understand. that even though the two kind of look similar, but it's fundamentally different. So one is it's almost like a bait, like a flick, while the other one is a heavy hitting. They're not the same at all. Okay, I will be making a part 2 of this video for my Patreon supporters only, where I'm going to compare bad Shuai Zhang to good Shuai Zhang, and then talk about how do you spot between them. So if you're interested in that, please do consider supporting me on my Patreon channel. And if you like this video, or if you like my content in general, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, a big thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, especially through the pandemic. And whenever you have a question about current content, suggestion of future content, always feel free to message me, and I'll definitely try my best to make it happen. Lastly, I'd like to remind everyone that we're still in a pandemic, so wear your mask, sanitize your hand, social distance if you can. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching TriEssence Martial Art channel.